Thanks for tuning to Sims Workshop. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. So you're all gonna have to bear with me. I'm still coming off of a cold. It's been a week. It's been a week. I've, been sick, so I haven't really had time to prep for this video like I usually do. I usually have like a whole thing typed up, but now my kids are sick, and it's been a week for me. Sliced my finger open at work. It's been a week. But in any case, let's just get into it. This is my February reading wrap up. So, unfortunately, I only read 9 books last month. It felt like more. And I think it felt like more because a couple of them dragged a lot. It wasn't a great month of reading, I hate to say it. I liked a bunch of things that I read, but for the most part, things just kind of felt a little lackluster. So, let's start with Liar's Beach. This is the first book I finished this month. It was okay. It was supposed to be kind of this young adult contemporary retelling of Mysterious Tales of Affairs by Agatha Christie. So it's actually one of the Agatha Christie books that I haven't read. So I'm not really familiar with it. However, I do love, Agatha Christie's work, and I do love Hercule Poirot as just a character. So I didn't really get a whole lot of Hercule Poirot vibes when I was telling the story. It didn't really feel like it was supposed to be an Agatha Christie retelling. I mean, maybe if I had read Mysterious Tales of Affairs, I would, get it more, but even just the feel of the characters, just the pacing, it didn't feel like something reminiscent of Agatha Christie. And I've read other retellings, so I'm just like, oh yeah, this is something Agatha Christie would approve of. Not so much with this book, unfortunately. A lot of the characterizations felt very two-dimensional, and there were things that were kind of popped in there, like the relationship between Lyndon and Greer, that is just like, it's like something's dropped and then it's open-ended. And I'm like, you're not going to give me any sort of conclusion to this, or their relationship, or their dynamic, or it's a good beach read if you're looking for, a mystery that you want to read on the beach that is, a one and done, a part of a series. It's okay. I wouldn't say it's the best mystery in the world. It didn't feel like it flowed, unfortunately. And this is something I was kind of really excited to read, and it just did not feel like it flowed. So I didn't really start off the month that great. After that, I read Down the Well by Veronica King. I got a whole lot of Alice in Wonderland vibes from this story, and just the fact that there are illustrations of mice and alligators when I was reading the book. But I definitely see the symbolism reminiscent of, Lewis Carroll's work, but for the most part, it really was kind of a letdown for me. It just didn't, I struggled with this book. Now, this book won the Book of the Month title on my website, so that was really the main reason why I stuck through with this book, but overall, it struggled to hold my attention, and I wasn't a huge fan. It felt too juvenile at times, while at the same time feeling a little too dark. So I get it, it's for young adult audiences, probably ages 12 to 14, I would say, is that accessible age range for it. That's what I got for it when I was feeling it out as I was reading it. But I wanted a little bit more characterization. I wanted it to not feel so juvenile at times. And this is someone, I read kid books. Like, come on, we know I read kid books. I read kid books. You can read a kid's book you can read a kid's book being juvenile but without it sounding so juvenile. This one felt very juvenile. And so, I mean, it was okay. It wasn't the greatest, but it was okay. After that, Bright Room Thing. So this is another retelling. It's supposed to be a young adult fantasy retelling of Shakespeare's The Tempest. It's been a while since I've read The Tempest. So before I picked this book up, I decided to spark note, you know, not Stephen King, Shakespeare's The Tempest. And I'm like, okay, it does feel like a Shakespearean retelling of The Tempest. You know, I do like that modern kind of 1920s glam feel that's in the story. I like the character development. I do like the character dynamics. And I love, again, the character development. She goes from being kind of a wallflower to calling people out on their shit. And I like that a lot. I really do like that she does that by the end of the book. And she is quite formidable at the end of it. She's really a good character. I do like her characterization and the character dynamics and that character growth. That ending, though, it kind of broke my heart. I'm just like, please, 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 please. And then it ends, and I'm like, no closure. But in this instance, I'm okay with not getting closure because otherwise I don't want to be disappointed. I'm left with this note of hope and be like, you know what? I'm going to end it in my head the way I want to end it instead of just kind of being in her imagination and whatnot. That's how I'm going to end this story in my head. So it leaves off like with this note of hope, but you don't get closure from that, unfortunately. So, you know, it is what it is. So reader be warned. But, you know, it does have really good pacing. It really was a really good retelling of The Tempest. I don't think I've read a bunch of Shakespearean retellings, for sure. But I think this one does stand apart because of how the story develops and how it integrates fantasy in the storytelling and how it moves from beginning to end. Oh my god. Next book I read this month was In the Lives of Puppets, and when I tell you, I love this book. I love this book. I mean, when I finished reading this book, I was texting my friend. I'm like, I don't know how I'm supposed to sleep tonight. And I'm just like ranting and raving. He's like, you doing okay there? Sounds like you're having a short circuit. He made a joke because I had told him about the book. He's like, you doing okay there? I'm like, no, I'm not okay. How am I supposed? And he kept trying to distract me. I mean, he's like, here, think about all these other things. And I'm like, you don't understand. He's like, I understand you're going through something. It was really funny. But yeah, I mean, In the Lives of Puppets, absolutely phenomenal. I love this book. I love this book so much. You have no idea how much I love this book. This book made me, it made me feel so many things. It was wonderful and it was amazing and it was just heartbreaking and heart-wrenching and just like thrilling at the same time. And oh my god, it was just so good. I love this book. I read this book, I'm like, you know what? That's it. I'm a fan of TJ Klune. Everyone needs to read TJ Klune. That's just it. It was just so emotional and like Swiss Family Robinson meets The Matrix meets Pinocchio, and I'm just like, this is like the greatest thing in the world. And it deals with what it means to be human and have empathy and feelings and what it means to be a family. Oh my god, Nurse Ratched and Rambo, they are so wholesome. I love them. You know, you've got the sociopathic nurse robot, and then you've got the neurotic vet cleaning robot, and their dynamics are so good. At 50 pages in, I'm like reading this book at work, and I'm laughing out loud. My coworkers are like, what the hell? And I'm like, I'm sorry. This book's hilarious, and I love it. 50 pages in, I knew it was going to be a 5-star read. Did not disappoint. I was just, yes. Just all kinds of yes. You have to read this book. After that, These Deadly Prophecies, which was the young adult book club pick for February. Such a good book. It was a really quick read, too. Just think Knives Out with fantasy. And I really liked that contemporary feel, like they're talking about YouTube videos, they're talking about like TikTok, and they're also talking about magic. And I'm like, this is cool. The author really did mesh real world with fantasy in a way that really, really worked, to create a really brilliant contemporary urban fantasy. And that characterization, the character dynamics, the romance, I mean, halfway through, I'm just like, I think it's this character. And I'm like, is this character? I'm like, why is no one paying attention to this character? And I was right. Again, short, quick read. Pacing was great. It just moved as a good mystery should. I understand some mysteries, they really rely on heavy drama and tension. But sometimes when you're reading a good mystery, you just want to like pow, 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 pow. You don't want to give the reader so much time to like get distracted by all the red herrings. You want the story to move at such a quick, fast pace. So, it was such a quick, fast-paced story. Short, quick read. Honestly, I would read so much more from this author as well. I mean, excellent book. After that, Divine Rivals. So I've already read Rebecca Ross before Divine Rivals blew her up. Sisters of Sword and Song. Really like that book. A River Enchanted, or an Enchanted River. I'm pretty sure it's a River Enchanted, and Endless Fire is book 2. I've read, A River Enchanted. I like her storytelling and her writing style a lot, so I'm not surprised that Divine Rivals blew her up. It was so good. I understand the hype for this book. I really do. It was so good, in my opinion, much better than Fourth Wing. I know, high praise. But there was something very moving about this storytelling. Iris and Roman as well, their whole friendship developing through letters, exchanging with one another. I mean, I felt that. As someone who used to, in college and high school, not high school, but in college, I had a notebook. And every day, even though I spoke to my boyfriend, my now husband, every night on Skype, I wrote to him every day, and then that was a present I gave to him. So I had like a really strong connection to that moment in the story where it's just, I'm a writer. Writing letters, I think it's such an intimate thing to do, for someone you care about. It really does form a whole lot of friendships. That's why I like texting a lot, honestly, and why I'll text my friends like 1,000 times, even though I don't expect to hear from them. I don't expect my friends to respond to every single text message I send, but that's why I like to do it, because I'm a writer, and I feel like writing is just like it's such an intimate form of connection with your friends, honestly. But it was beautiful and it was moving, and I really did like this story, but that ending, oh my god, I understand why everyone's just like, oh, I need book 2 now. I need book 2 now. But I think my Owl Crate one was just delivered, so we'll see if I can squeeze it onto my March TBR pile. We'll see. We will discuss this at a later date and time. But I get it. That ending, that was jaw-dropping and a cliffhanger, and it's been a while since I've read such a good cliffhanger such as that. Nine of Swords. Unfortunately, this was a DNF for me. I know you guys saw my TBR video for last month. This was a gift from the author to me. Everyone knows me. I very rarely DNF books. I got to chapter 12. It was very long. It was very tedious. I didn't understand why some characters had point of views. It was clear that they were inserted strictly for plot purposes. Considering the back of the book reads like it's supposed to be a single POV book and not a multiple POV book, the prologue showed a lot of promise. But oh my god, it got to the point where I would look at the book and I would just be like, I don't want to read you. I don't want to pick you up. I just groaned. I was just like, let me just read a little bit. when you have to groan to read a book and you're just not feeling it, it's time to just put it on your DNF pile. Like, I gave up on it. I'm just like, I can't. There are so many other books that I want to read and want to give a shot to that I can't spend my time wasting on something I didn't like. I gifted it to my friend. She's like, I'll give it a shot. And I'm like, just so you know, I DNF'd it. She's like, that's really rare for you. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Because I will tough it out as much as I can. I could not. And I like chunky books. Like, I love chunky books. Books this thick. And if I'm already this much in and I'm struggling, I cannot commit to this much. I just can't do it. It was just, I couldn't do it. I was like, ugh, God, no, I can't do this anymore. So I feel bad because the author did give this book to me. You know, she did mail it to me. I will, you know, of course, review it to the best of my ability of what I will explain in my review why I did not finish it, but this was a DNF for me. I just couldn't do it. I just, it felt very, very juvenile. Didn't feel at all like a young adult book at all. It felt very, very long, very, very tedious. It dragged. I was constantly be like, okay, are we going to finally start the story now? It was just long and tedious, and I couldn't suffer through it anymore. After that, The Warm Hands of Ghosts. So Catherine Arden, I do like Catherine Arden as a writer. I do like historical fiction. I'm just very picky about my historical fiction because it's not what I tend to go to. I love magical realism in my historical fiction. This deals with World War One, which, again, not a turnoff. I've read war stories before. Sometimes they break my heart and make me feel so many things. I'm just like, oh my God, that was such a good book, right? This was marketed as a historical fiction with a speculative twist. If you go to your local bookstore, you're going to see it's going to be in the fantasy section. That's how it says, that's what the publisher marked it as, fantasy. There is very little, very, very little fantasy in this book. I would actually put this book in the fiction section, and I would switch it out with The Discovery of Witches, which has way more fantasy. I would flip those two because there is so little fantasy in this story. And I went into this thinking, oh, Catherine Arden, it's a fantasy book. I am going to just be taken away by the fantasy. It's very, very minimal. It hardly exists. So because of, you know, like my mindset, it was a bit of a struggle for me to read. It was very slow. You are going back between two point of views, which again, that's not a deterrent for me, usually. I tend to love multiple POVs because I think multiple POVs add a whole lot more to the story because you're seeing a lot more of the story. I don't always think it's necessary for a story. I think you can write a story, single POV, without switching and going all over the place. But I do think multiple POVs do offer something to a story, which is why I tend to love them a lot. It's just, they dragged. You know, and I finished this book. I finish it. I give it 3 stars. I think it's emotional. I do love the sister's search for her brother, but I wanted more fantasy. If I go to the fantasy section of the bookstore and I pick up this book, I would want way more fantasy. It's very subtle. It's more historical fiction. So that's what I'm saying. Reader be warned. Don't pick up this book expecting, oh, it's Catherine Arden. She's known for writing lots of fantasy. Let me read this book. Very minimal fantasy to it. It's more of a historical fiction book, and I would honestly take it out of fantasy at the bookstore and put it in with fiction because it fits in better there. And last but not least, I read Beholder by Ryan Lasala. Yo, this dude writes trippy books. Let me tell you, this is another. Why do I feel like this month? You know, theme of the month. This book dragged. Even this book, and I listened to this book as an audiobook at ×2 speed. It felt like it was again, audiobook ×2 speed, and it felt like it was dragging. Um, I wanted a little bit more from the book. Um, Actually, no, that's not even right. I didn't want a little bit more from the book. I wanted it to move faster, honestly. It didn't move fast enough. You know, you had that rising tension, and it really did have good tension. And I really did like the relationship between Athanasios and Dom. I liked their characterizations. I liked their character dynamics. I like how they grew together. Their relationship was really the biggest takeaway for me from this book. But the mystery, the fantasy behind it, it dragged a little bit. I thought it was really interesting. You know, Athanasios' power is if he looks in mirrors and he looks at his reflection, he can rewind the reflection. So he can look into the past. And so he's like, it's like watching a video and he's like rewinding and then pausing when he wants to just so that he can watch a particular scene. And I think that that was really cool. But man, sometimes it was really, really trippy. And he's trying to, you know, he solves his parents' murder, their death. He's looking for his missing grandmother. There's a lot going on. And considering there was a lot going on, I wanted a faster pace for it. I wanted things to get resolved a little bit quicker so that I didn't lose that tension and so that I wasn't taken out of the story as often as I was. Again, audiobook times 2 speed. um, I wanted some parts to be more condensed than they were. It felt like it dragged a little bit. It really did. You know, theme of the month. This book dragged, like I said. So I wanted it to move at a quicker pace than it actually did, and that's really the only thing that hindered me from really enjoying this book as much as I wanted to. Because again, those character dynamics, the mystery, the fantasy, I think they were all good elements. I just think as a whole, because of the story's pacing, it is more of a 3-star book for me than a 4-star book. So, you know, there we go. Those are my 9 books of the month. I'm sorry I went on some tangents, you guys. Again, I like to prep before I do these videos, but I just didn't have the time. But in any case, thank you all for tuning in. You know, hopefully this month I am able to read better books. I'm enjoying them a little bit more. Maybe I'll get to read a little bit more. We'll see. And in case, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my channel, and share with all your book loving friends. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope you all have a lot of fun reading this March. Happy reading, you guys.